When Universal opened their second edition Islands of Adventure in 1999, the rides that made up the park's licensed areas were some of the most advanced attractions in theme park history. While a motion simulator dark ride like The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man was one of the most groundbreaking attractions of all time, and a coaster like The Incredible Hulk offered one of the most thrilling experiences in all of Orlando, Universal had also been working on creating one of the most unique water rides in the world. Welcome back to another episode of Theme Park Lore, where today we'll be breaking down the history and lore of Universal Studios' Islands of Adventure's classic log flume attraction, Dudley Do-Right's Ripsaw Falls. While animation is one of the most saturated genres on TV, with shows like The Simpsons, Rick and Morty, and Family Guy being some of the most popular programs of all time, the roots of the medium go back to the 1950s and 60s. Companies like Hanna-Barbera would create household names like the Flintstones, the Jetsons, and Yogi Bear that would later be represented in their own Universal attraction, The Fantastic World of Hanna-Barbera, but the concept of an animated series made specifically for TV goes back to 1950 with the release of Crusader Rabbit. Following the adventures of Crusader Rabbit and his sidekick Rags the Tiger, the show originally ran for 195 4-minute episodes and was the beginning of the animation revolution that would take over television. While Crusader Rabbit is not the first show people think of when looking back at animation in the 50s and 60s, creators Alex Anderson and Jay Ward would soon go on to create some of the most iconic characters in animated history. After losing the rights to Crusader Rabbit in a bankruptcy battle, Jay Ward and Alex Anderson would return to characters they had previously pitched to NBC to develop what would turn into The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle and Friends. While Anderson was not involved with the show and is just credited with co-creating characters like Rocky, Bullwinkle, and Dudley Do-Right, Ward would spin the characters off into their own animated variety show, with the main segment of the show following Rocky and Bullwinkle facing off against villains Boris Badenoff and Natasha Fattel. Other segments included Fractured Fairy Tales, comedic retellings of classic fairy tale stories, Peabody's Improbable History, the time-traveling adventures of a dog named Peabody and his owner Sherman, and Dudley Do-Right, a parody of 20th century melodramas and silent films. Following a Canadian Mountie and his horse trying to rescue a damsel in distress from his nemesis Snidley Whiplash, Dudley Do-Right and his Mounties was a satirical take on melodramas of the day, with each episode showing Do-Right succeeding in foiling Snidley's plans by sheer luck or the ingenuity of his horse. The segment ran for 39 episodes in its original run and was a hallmark of the Rocky and Bullwinkle and Friends show. While segments would rerun in different forms like the Dudley Do-Right Show and Dudley Do-Right and Friends, the property would remain mostly dormant until its revival in 1997 when production began on the Brendan Fraser-led live-action adaptation. While the film would release to abysmal box office performance and reviews, the characters were in the process of being immortalized in one of the grandest ways possible. After opening their first Orlando park in 1990, Universal Studios began planning an addition to their Florida resort. While Universal had succeeded in bringing over several great attractions from their Hollywood theme park, Universal Studios Florida was a one-day park that was more of a novelty to check out when already in Orlando rather than a vacation destination like Disney World. Wanting to truly challenge Disney's stake in the Florida theme park market, work quickly began on creating a second edition. Looking to license new characters for attractions, Universal would seek out a licensing agreement with Warner Brothers to create rides based on their catalog of characters. Tentatively called Cartoon World, the new park was planned to feature lands based off of Looney Tunes, DC Comics, the characters of Dr. Seuss, and an area highlighting classic cartoons and comic strips. Licensing characters from King Features Syndicate like Hagar the Horrible, Blondie, and Popeye, Universal was also able to secure the theme park rights for the characters of Jay Ward for their new park. At the same time, with licensing negotiations with Warner Brothers falling through, Universal would retool much of Cartoon World and pivot to other properties like Marvel Comics and Jurassic Park. Warner would go on to purchase Six Flags in 1993 and subsequently license Looney Tunes and DC characters to their parks, and Universal would transform their second park from Cartoon World to Islands of Adventure. And although many attractions would have to be rethemed and shuffled for the new IP, much of Toon Lagoon stayed intact through the park's development. Originally planned to be a larger section of Toon Lagoon, the characters of Popeye would have been split off into its own area, Popeye's Island, with one area, Sweet Haven Village, featuring shops, restaurants, and a canceled dark boat ride called Popeye's Adventure, and another area called the Docks with the now released Bluto's Bilge Rat Barges raft ride as its main attraction. The area would also include a restaurant with a live dinner show. Popeye characters would still make up much of Toon Lagoon in its final form, with both Popeye and Bluto's Bilge Rat Barges and the kids' playground Me Ship the Olive being two of the land's biggest attractions, but the area's hallmark ride would star characters from a completely different IP. While characters like Rocky and Bullwinkle were featured in the short-lived Pandemonium cartoon circus show at Toon Lagoon, the biggest Jay Ward footprint at Islands Islands of Adventure would be the log flume attraction Dudley Do-Right's Ripsaw Falls. As one of the original attractions developed for Cartoon World, the then called Dudley Do-Right's Great Northwestern Sawmill was planned to feature a double log ride vehicle that would be sawed in half before the ride's final drop. Ripsaw Falls still features its original sawmill theming and still utilizes a double drop, even though the removal of the saw split removes its context. With a track developed by Mock Rides and animatronics developed by AVG Technologies, Ripsaw Falls utilizes a combination of a roller coaster and log flume system. While much of the ride's slow-moving sections are free-flowing through the attraction's water passages, when the flume enters one of the ride's dips, curves, or falls, it connects to a rail system and transitions into a coaster. This is most utilized in the attraction's final drop, where afterwards the log goes over a hill and is suspended by a rail in the water. Dudley Do-Right's Ripsaw Falls features some of the most iconic and recognizable theming in all of Islands of Adventure, with its parody of Mount Rushmore featuring the attraction's characters and the ride's 75-foot drop on display for passers-by. Walking up to the attraction, guests make their way under the ride's entrance arch and walk through switchbacks before entering the Yukon Theater. Passing movie posters parodying films like Star Wars, Jaws, and E.T., guests pass dressing rooms for characters featured in the ride where Nell, the damsel in distress, can be seen being kidnapped by Snidley. Walking across the mezzanine of the theater, guests can watch a Q video animated by Universal Animation Studios. Giving riders some background on who the characters in the attraction are, the animation is a trailer for the fake cartoon Ripsaw Falls that the attraction is based on. Walking past the projector, guests then encounter two animatronics of talking animal heads parodying characters from Disney's Country Bear Jamboree. Going down the ramp, riders finally board the log in a single file formation. As the ride vehicle leaves the loading dock, guests make their way under the projector screen and encounter several black and white animatronics of animals playing the score from the Q video. Passing by a shadow of Nell being kidnapped by Snidley, animatronics of Dudley and his horse are seen riding off to save her. Passing by figures of Nell and Snidley making their way into a mine shaft, riders' logs are raised up the attraction's first hill. Now outside the show building, figures of Dudley and his horse falling down a waterfall are passed before the log enters the mine shaft. Dudley and his horse are attacked by a bear in the cave, and as the log moves out of the room, the narrator announces Snidley tying Nell to the railroad tracks. Passing the horse and Dudley's boss, Inspector Fenwick, who are also tied down, guests are warned that they're going the wrong way before entering a pitch-black room. Dudley then announces that he's lost his train of thought before a bright light mimicking an oncoming train is shined towards riders, parodying a similar scene from Disney's attraction Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Going down a large drop, guests plunge down into the darkness before returning outside. After banking around a corner and entering the sawmill, a fight ensues between Snidley and Dudley, which sends riders down another medium-sized drop. Moving past signs warning guests that they're in trouble, riders begin their ascent of the attraction's last lift. Then, entering Snidley's lair, water drips out of barrels above the log and encounters a scene of Nell loading Snidley into a cannon. Shooting out of the cannon and through the roof of the next building, Dudley then sets off an explosion that sends the log into its final drop. Plunging 75 feet into a dynamite shack at a 50-degree angle, the log drops at 45 miles an hour before going over a small hill and splashing into the water below. Moving under a bridge above the flume, passers-by can spray riders with water guns before guests encounter a scene of Snidley trying to convince a beaver to give him the key to his prison cell, parodying the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction. As the log makes its way past an awards ceremony celebrating Dudley and his horse, the log enters the unloading dock where riders can exit the attraction. Launching as an opening day ride for Universal Studios' Islands of Adventure, Dudley Do-Right's Ripsaw Falls was met with widespread acclaim from both casual fans and theme park enthusiasts, praising its unique theming, plethora of animatronics, and unique ride system that built on the log flume format by incorporating roller coaster elements into its track. Ripsaw Falls became a mainstay of Islands of Adventure. As one of the most thrilling rides at the park, Ripsaw Falls' impressive 75-foot drop made it one of the biggest log flume rides in all of Florida, surpassing Splash Mountain's 52 feet. While its animatronics aren't the most detailed, with many figures lacking advanced movement and several falling into states of disarray, the charm of the attraction's theming feels timeless, and its art direction pulled the characters off the screen into real life. Serving as Universal's answer to Disney's Splash Mountain, Dudley Do-Right's Ripsaw Falls does a great job parodying theme park rides while creating a compelling attraction that stands on its own. While the IP may be outdated, with much of Dudley Do-Right's relevancy coming from the attraction itself, Ripsaw Falls continues to offer riders one of the most thrilling and one of the wettest experiences in all of Islands of Adventure. However, while Dudley Do-Right's Ripsaw Falls is one of the wettest attractions at the park, the ride would suffer extreme damages from a fire that broke out behind the show building on January 1st, 2011. 2011. Believed to be an electrical fire, the Mount Rushmore section of the attraction would burst into flames, sending a black cloud of smoke into the air which was large enough to be seen from across the park. While the fire was contained and extinguished quickly, riders had to be evacuated from the ride, and the surrounding Toon Lagoon area was closed for an hour and a half on one of the busiest days of the year. No injuries or fatalities were reported, but the attraction sustained major damage from the event. While Ripsaw Falls had been planned to close in the following months for a refurbishment anyways, the attraction would stop operation for 2 months to repair not only the outside of the show building, but the internals that were also damaged. With special effects and animatronics restored and the entire attraction being repainted, Ripsaw Falls would reopen on March 14th, 2011, less than 3 months after one of the biggest fires to take place at a Universal park. While Islands of Adventure is full of groundbreaking rides that constantly innovated on classic theme park tropes and ride systems, Dudley Do-Right's Ripsaw Falls continues to be one of the best water rides ever built. With its fantastic ride system, great theming, and thrilling drop, Ripsaw Falls continues to be a favorite for attendees at Islands of Adventure. The attraction is starting to show its age, with animatronics constantly going in and out of service and its theming being even more outdated than when Toon Lagoon opened, but it remains to be one of the most classic attractions at Islands of Adventure. Toon Lagoon is definitely an area of the park that could use some love or a re-theme, but for now, Dudley Do-Right's Ripsaw Falls is still one of the best log flumes ever made. Let me know down in the comments what you think of Dudley Do-Right's Ripsaw Falls, and thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing if you'd like to stick around for more theme park lore, and I'll see you in the next video.